What's up, Vibers? Welcome to this build guide video on Ghost. My goal for this video is to present you with several different very strong build options that you can play as Ghost utilizing different build items from the Armory. And specifically, we're going to look at builds that drastically change the playstyle of Ghost. Basically, present different options for how you could play Ghost on the breach, and hopefully one, if not a couple of these, really fit into your personal playstyle and let you have a lot of fun on Ghost. Now, I know there are some mixed feelings on the Armory, a lot of that feedback coming on how you actually acquire and unlock things in the Armory, but when we look at the Armory itself and the sort of build options it presents with us, I think Theorycraft has accomplished what they set out to as far as diversifying the build options for different characters, because there are absolutely way more playstyles that you can play Ghost than you used to before 1.0, and I think that is super cool. Now, I've been playing Ghost basically every day since the 1.0 release. If you want to come hang out and check out what I'm testing currently on Ghost, you can find me live at Sigric with a 0. But what we're going to go through here is basically a collection of everything I've tested and learned, combined with ideas and tips I've gotten from top players that play Ghost, along with just a bunch of different suggestions and tips from the community, fellow Ghost players hanging out in my Twitch chat, commenting on my YouTube videos, etc. Okay, so let's start it off with what I think is the most powerful, sort of balanced overall Ghost build. This is basically my go-to if I want to win the game. And this is Ghost being strong across all fronts. This is not focused on our laser. This is not focused on our grenade. This is not focused on our dash. This is focused on being an all-around, very strong Ghost. So the first relic that's basically essential is going to be this Ardent Songbow. And the reason that is, especially once we get it to 2-star, it's not quite as good at 1-star, but once we get this thing to 2-star, this is going to serve as all of the cooldown reduction we need. We don't need to take laser max. We don't need to take grenade max. We don't need to build any more ability haste on any of our items. All of our cooldown reduction is going to be solved through the power of the Ardent Songbow. Now, I expect this to probably get a nerf, but even when it does get a nerf, it's probably still going to be very strong for our kit. And you can see essentially what this does is hitting an enemy with a primary attack refunds 1 second of cooldowns on your abilities. So you can see here, if I use my cooldowns, I'll use my ult, I'll use my laser, I'll use my nade. Now watch my cooldowns down here. I'll try to move myself out of the way. Every time I hit a primary attack, look how fast my nade and laser refunded, right? It's actually insane how fast you can get your cooldowns back. So with just this item, we can have very high uptime on our laser, grenade, and ultimate without running any sort of ability haste or really anything else. For the second relic, there are a couple different options. My top option right now is Essence Reaper. I think Songbow, Essence Reaper feels insanely strong together, but I do think there are some other good options here. I think if you like the way it feels, I think Rampager, especially if your Rampager is like higher star, can be a really good option in this second slot as well, accomplishing a similar type of thing as Essence Reaper, although I do think Essence Reaper is stronger overall. And another option that I would recommend basically only once you get it to 3 stars would be Air Blast in this slot. And I think the 3-star Air Blast, because it knocks enemies away, slows them by 30% for 2 seconds, and gives you a shield based on the amount of enemies hit, is going to have an extremely high amount of value on Ghost. So I think 3-star Air Blaster is going to be very hard to put down once you get it. But before that point, or if you don't really like the active and you just like more of the passive scaling of the Essence Reaper or the Rampager, you can certainly run either of these. So for this third slot, it's basically Essence Reaper, Rampager, or Air Blaster if you have a 3-star. This is the setup I've been favoring the most, Songbow with Essence Reaper. For our grips, I've tried out a bunch of different grips with a bunch of different looks. To me, overall, the strongest grip look for Ghost is going to be Gorger Talon's Longclaw Optics. Both of these lean extremely well into Ghost kit. The way our passive is stacking Omnivamp, we get way more value out of the overshield when we're using our abilities. We also get the 10% extra Omnivamp underneath. This item, since I started using it on Ghost, I've had a very hard time putting it down. It goes very strong with many different builds on Ghost just because of how well it synergizes with his passive. Sometimes I forget I'm in the way down there, but yeah, his passive is Combat Rush. So hitting an enemy with Spike Grenade, Railgun, or Napalm grants 6% Omnivamp for 3.5 seconds, and that can stack, right? And so that combined with the extra 10% we're getting from the Gorger Talons actually goes crazy. And I've tried a bunch of different things in this second slot. I think to me, especially in the Battle Royale mode, when you're actually out on the breach trying to get first, this primary attack range is so strong, especially when you get it to 3-star. It really enables Ghost to hold a lot more space with his auto damage, and it lets you get a lot more damage through that you otherwise normally wouldn't be able to because of this 20% extra range. And I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but in the setting of the Battle Royale, the amount you can actually poke extra with this, chip enemy armor, get more damage through, especially if you have something like an exotic like Armor Shredder or something like that. You know, just the value of the extra range if you're burst firing, holding space for your team is just very, very strong in my opinion. And then finally for boots, we are taking high tops. And you know, I think there's a fair argument between Bloodlust and High Tops. There's a couple builds we'll look at that I recommend Bloodlust over High Tops, but I think in general for Ghost, the way we're traversing the map and the way very often our dash is on like a 3-second cooldown anyways, you really want the extra dash speed of the High Tops, because every one of these jumps is going to get you a little further, and even the little B hop at the end is going to go further when you have extra dash speed, right? And so especially for like map traversal, for running away, for all these situations where you're not actually in combat, activating the bonuses of Bloodlust boots, like I really favor the High Tops. So this right here is basically my #1 favorite Ghost build right now. We talked about trading Essence Reaper for 3-star Air Blast and or Rampager if you have a higher Rampager star. I think either of those can work in this slot. I think Songbow is basically essential, especially once you get it to 2-star, and then rocking Gorger Talons Longclaw Optics pairing for our grips to give us that range and extra Omni with the Overshield, along with the High Tops for the traversal we just talked about. This is just a very well-balanced Ghost build that's going to perform very well for you in most situations. And this build will be actually with the Shift Max. I think most of these builds are going to be using the level 4 Shift just because of how strong it is. All right, so for the next build, which is very close to this build actually, what I'm calling the Krilo Special, because this is basically the build Krilo was telling me he has been running on Ghost, and it also sounds very strong. It's very similar. Basically what we're doing is we're dropping this range of Longclaw for the extra dashing from Bunny Paw, and we are dropping High Tops for Bloodlust boots. And basically this is a similar type of build, but it's a little more combat focused. It's less like BR space holding traversal focused. It's a little more like arena skirmish close quarters combat. And in my opinion, if you already have Shift Max, the Rabbit Paw is a little bit of overkill on the dash haste. If you're wanting to lean more into like the skirmisher playstyle around Bloodlust boots, like really playing more around the nade angle, a little less around your range, a little more around choke points, a little more around like dashing up on people, you know, to sticky them and just rip them, and dashing out, like a little more around the dash cooldown and movement speed in combat, and a little less about the kind of range, space holding, map traversal, running away, you know, these other utilities that the build I was just running with High Tops and Longclaw gives you. So they're very similar. I would say if you're very confident in your Ghost gameplay and you like playing aggro, this one might be a little better. I would say probably just like overall for your average player, this one's going to be a little easier to pull off and feel a little kind of more forgiving with the extra range. Okay, for our third build, we're going to take a look at an Armory starter build from Zed, one of the best Ghosts in the game right now, in my opinion. Absolute SoloQ demon in the North America region. And this is sort of like a hybrid of the two we were just running in a way, but with the addition of Festering Longclaw. And Zed made this specifically as like a starter build. So if you're early on in your Armory, if you don't have many stuff unlocked yet, if like everything's 1-star, this will be a pretty strong setup. So it's basically we're dropping Gorger for Rabbit Paw now. So now we have both Rabbit Paw and Longclaw. And we are going to be rocking, pretend we're rocking Rampager in our second slot instead of Essence Reaper, right, for our previous build. And then for our first slot, we are opting to the Festering Jawblade. And you can see we don't have any like purples, no golds in this setup. So it's technically, you know, easier to unlock these things from the capsules. And the main difference with this build is it's leaning, we're giving up the Omnivamp on our Gorgers because we're getting it back from the Festering Jawblade plus some. And the Rampager, right? So the Rampager is stacking Omnivamp when we get hit and stacking damage when we hit. And then the Jawblade is basically going to give us Omnivamp against anything that's anti-healed, and it's going to give us the ability to anti-heal ourselves, which is actually very, very strong in the game in general. And so the main kind of thing with this build that you really want to keep in mind is it's an active you have to actually use. So it's not just like a passive thing that's on. Like when you are getting into combat, you have to, when you need those 4 seconds of anti-heal / Omnivamp, you need to actually activate this with whatever your, you know, powers button is. But if you can remember to do that, and if you can do it at the right time, I think this build, especially for like the way Zed is framing it as sort of an Armory starter build for someone just starting out at Ghost, could be very, very strong, and, you know, give you the ability to really lean into the Omnivamp of your passive by gaining Omnivamp and damage from Rampager, and then being able to activate this and get 25 extra Omnivamp on anything you're anti-healing with your primary attacks for these 4 seconds. So this is like a really cool look that definitely has a lot of good viability that I wanted to shout out from Zed here. Okay, next we have kind of like a completely different look overall, and this is going to be our laser max look. So most of these builds we're shift maxing. This build we will want to max our arcane railgun, and this is going to be an amplifier build. Sorry, a resonating idol build. Used to be called amplifier. And specifically this arcane railgun build is going to work much better once you get 2-star resonating idol, which is the main reason I haven't been messing with it much yet. As soon as I get a 2-star idol, I will be playing around with this build quite a bit more, because I was a huge fan of laser max before the shift to 1.0. And then for our second slot here, we're going to have a couple different options. I think if you're really wanting to lean into the cooldown reduction, especially if you're not super confident in your ability to hit your laser, I think Time Staff is going to be a really good one here. Basically because we are really trying to stack ability haste for our laser cooldown. I think the other option that could be really good here is Air Blast once you get the 3-star, for the same reasons we talked about it before. But I think a really unique option that actually could end up feeling really good is this Sword of the Seven Suns, because this is a unique item in that it's giving overall damage on its bonus. It's not primary damage, it's not ability damage, it's literally all damage. And so because of that, we're getting a curse to take that. So we get the minus move speed and the minus dash haste. But this build, this laser max build, we are very much focusing on long range laser poke and resetting that laser cooldown instantly to poke again. We are very much wanting to stay sort of like max range. And so for that reason, I think this would be sort of a perfect look for the Sword of the Seven Suns, because we're going to get bonus damage on our laser, and we're not leaning super hard into move speed or dash haste for this build, not nearly as much as we do for other ghost builds. So to complement this, what we're going to do for our grips is chrono gauge, not only for the extra ability haste, but also for the fact that when our laser hits now, it's going to be reducing our abilities cooldowns. And then on top of that, we're going to throw on burning palm. This is going to make it so every time we actually connect our laser, it's going to do this crazy max health burn. And now in this build, we could keep our high tops if we want to, which I probably will end up doing just because I'm sort of addicted to the extra dash speed. Another look, if you wanted, is you could sort of counteract the, reduced dash haste from this dash haste. So we're only at -5 dash haste now. If we take this, so we have, let's see, 8.9 second cooldown, 9.9 second cooldown. But when we're dashing, it really equates to, 5 seconds versus basically 4 seconds. It was 5 per sec. Yeah, it's like, maybe a second, less than a second off of the cooldown. But yeah, this would basically be my go-to laser max setup. Resonating Idol, Sword of the Seven Suns, Chrono Gauge, Burning Palm with high tops. To play this build, you're going to want to basically be staying like max range and really trying to be focused on poking with your laser, because especially once you get your Resonating Idol stacked up to 10, the main reason you want 2-star Idol is if you stack this up to 10 with your laser, you're not going to want to use your other abilities. Like you want to avoid using nade unless it's like guaranteed. And same thing with ultimate, right? Because as soon as you do, it's going to have your resonating stacks and your laser is going to be on less of a cooldown. So we can see here, when I hit Fox, I'm instantly back off cooldown, right? So when you combine these things, you actually don't even need the time staff when you're hitting your laser. The time staff would be good if you're, not confident in your ability to hit the laser, but you see I shifted and my stacks are gone, right? Once you get this to level 2, you are going to be able to use your shift without resetting these, right? That's why the level 2 idol is so good. See, I just accidentally reset it from shifting out of the fire. It's already back to 5. But with 10 stacks, we can see if I hit just one person, it's not only going to light them on fire, it's going to instantly refresh my railgun, right? So, and keep in mind with this build, your railgun has very strong pushback, right? So if someone's pointed blank on you, using your railgun simply for the push is often like a ghost tactic that newer ghosts don't realize. But yeah, this is the crazy laser max build that I will be running fairly soon, hopefully, once I get my 2-star idol. Now, speaking of idol, and speaking specifically of 1-star idol, there's actually a really cool build that I've been working on with Aidan. We kind of had the idea, funnily enough, like right around the same time, like 2 days after we were working on that Shiv build together. But basically, you can run this one with a 1-star idol. So again, this one is going to be very strong for newer Armory. The main thing with this one is you need dash engine. And we'll talk about perks at the end, but I think the 3 most essential for Ghost are dash engine, amplified mana, and armor shredder. And this is basically a Perma Dash build where we are going to get our shift on like less than a 1-second cooldown. And you can do this with a higher star idol. The main thing is if you use an ability, you're going to actually have to drop your idol and pick it up to reset stats. Whereas with the level 1, it's a little more forgiving where you can just keep shifting and like restacking. But paired with this, we are very much going to want to go Vibe Infuser. And we are going to give up our Gorger Talons because we're not going to need the Omnivamp with this Vibe Infuser healing. We're going to take Bunny Paw to lean more into the Shift Max, and we're going to take Long Claw to give us the ability to just spray crazy range LMBs And this is a full-blown, like Aidan calls it, Call of Duty Ghost, right? Where the main thing we're trying to do is LMB. We basically want to avoid using all of our other cooldowns unless they're going to result in a guaranteed kill. But if we play this way, we're going to essentially be uncatchable. And not only are we going to be very hard to catch up to with our infinite shift, every time we shift, we're going to be healing ourselves with Vibe Infuser, and we can constantly be, you know, sort of spraying damage back. And so you can see I'm stacked at 7, stacked at 8, stacked at 9, stacked at 10. And so now our shift cooldown is 1 second. And you will be able to move like this. And remember, every time I'm doing this, I'm healing, right? And so, oh, and I'm not even, you would want to play this build shift max, by the way. So now with our shift max speed, with our bunny paw speed, and with our 10 resonating idle stacks, not only are we moving very fast at the end of every dash, our dash is up basically every second. And you're going to want a short dash with this, which is basically I'm tapping dash. If you hold dash, you're going to go a little further, but it's going to put you on a significantly longer cooldown. You're going to get much more distance if you just repeatedly tap. And you can like B-hop the end like I'm doing. You can just use the extra move speed if you need to like WASD stuff. But you're playing this full LMB Ghost. This is Call of Duty Ghost. Just constantly dodging, constantly spraying LMBs, and just basically being uncatchable, unkillable. If you're struggling, staying alive in the BR, or just like with survival in general, I think this build is really good at just helping you live and helping you get out of sticky situations or catch up to your team. And again, you're basically just playing LMB, right? You're playing very hard to catch. You only want to use your nade and your laser when it's like absolutely about to happen. And for that reason, this build is going to feel significantly different than other Ghost builds. Like, this is a very unique feeling build, and it's not even necessarily great. It's great aiming practice. If you really want to practice aiming on Ghost with the LMB and getting really good at spraying, I think this build is great. I think it's not great in the fact that it kind of teaches you bad habits of like not using your abilities and or shifting forward, which can end up killing you a lot on Ghost if you don't have a really fast shift cooldown. However, I do think it's a very fun, unique build. It feels very different than other Ghosts, and I do think it's very strong for just sort of solo carrying in ranked. And carrying more from like keeping your team alive even than like damage, right? Just carrying to like keep yourselves in the game. And I mentioned Dash Engine being really important with this build. As you can imagine, it's going to be very mana intensive dashing this much. I think Dash Engine is basically the best perk for every Ghost build. And because of how you're going to find that before you have this and or the mana one, which I end up running together now that I have them both, and I unlock the mana one first, but Ghost is very mana starved without these 2 runes, especially if you're using a lot of your abilities, right? However, there was like a long amount of time, like basically all the time. I got Dash Engine literally like Friday night, so it's been like over 2 weeks that I've been running Ghost without Dash Engine, and I didn't get amplified mana till like a few days before that, so I've been very mana starved on Ghost. If you don't have either of these perks and you still want to, you know, feel like a real Ghost with enough mana to do stuff, I basically designed a health max build designed around more inherent mana using Greenwood Grasp. And this is also kind of like a starter build where you would imagine you don't have a ton of stuff unlocked in your armory yet, but it's going to be very much leaning into health Omnivamp, right? So this setup is going to be Essence Reaper Rampager, and then we are actually going to be using Greenwood Grasp for the extra mana. We can see this gives us, you know, takes us from 222 mana up to 323 mana. So this extends our mana pool by basically a full third. It's going to give us a lot more options, a lot more room to wiggle in combat without going fully You will absolutely feel this 100 extra mana. And then on top of that, we are going to get this health scaling over the course of the game that's going to be stacking with our Essence Reaper health scaling. So if you're going this build, you want to try to grab Greenwood Grasp like as soon as possible. Like as soon as you get 500 coin and you're by any regular shop, scoop your Greenwood Grasp, use your next 1,000 to get to a relic shop and buy Essence Reaper so you can start stacking the health on these things, right? Then for our secondary grip, we are going to go Gorger. And so basically the whole idea behind this build is that we are stacking not only health, we're stacking Omnivamp, right? So we're going to get the Omnivamp from our passive. We're going to get 10% more Omnivamp from our Gorger talents. We're going to get this overshield based on the amount overhealed from our Gorger on top of our giant health pool. And then we're going to be getting a lot of extra Omnivamp from our Rampager combined with extra damage. So it's like more mana with stacking health And this, by the way, not only gives stacking health, it also gives damage and also heals you. So this has almost like a little built-in Omnivamp, built-in damage, and built-in health stacking all together. This is like the best of all three worlds of what we're trying to do in this build. Combined with the mana and health of Greenwood Grasp, the Omnivamp and stacking primary damage of Rampager, combined with the extra Omnivamp on Gorger and the Omnivamp Arm passive, is going to make this build just very kind of beefy, very strong, tons of Omnivamp. If you hit any kind of ability on someone, you're going to be absolutely cooking them and getting a lot of health back through that first part of burst of your laser, and you're going to have a lot of health to work with, especially if you get a little head start and build yourself an overshield. You're going to be very much beefy Ghost, very hard to punch through, and especially if you are connecting your abilities and your LMBs with that Omnivamp, you're going to be healing a huge part of that health pool as you're dealing damage, and that's going to be scaling over the course of combat with your Rampager, right? So with this build, I actually really like the Bloodlust boots because you're playing more kind of in it and you're going for more of like tanky combat Ghost. I think the Bloodlust boots and the attack speed they give you to maneuver in combat while you're trying to just play off your health pool is like very strong with this build. And again, this build really is going to shine as like a starter build, early Armory, before you have a ton of stuff unlocked or you have many stars into things, and or before you have Dash Engine or Mana, right? So you actually can go, they will still help with this build, but you can actually play this build without these because of the extra mana you're getting on Greenwood Grasp. And you're obviously, in any game, you're going to want health pots, Vive Brews, to restore your mana when you do eventually goes down. But you'd be surprised how much more wiggle room 100 mana on a full mana pool gives you over the course of like a sequence of combat than not having it. So this was one I ended up running for a couple days early that was feeling very strong before I had these 2 mana perks. Okay, these last few we're going to look at are more like damage focused builds, right? So the first one is going to be basically if you have like a team that you're playing with a comp where you know you're going to be kind of protected. Like let's say you have, you know, like a Zeph with like a Kingpin or something like that, right? And you're in comms with these players and you know they're going to be playing to support you. You're going to be playing off the Kingpin stun. You're going to be getting Zeph heals, right? That's a situation where, okay, I'm okay sacrificing some of this Omnivamp, sacrificing some of this survivability to lean more into damage, right? So if you're looking at more of a full damage carry Ghost, that's going to be this setup, starting with Refractor. Refractor is going to boost not only our primary damage base, it's also going to cause this ricochet effect to happen to anyone near the primary target that we're shooting. That actually ends up adding up quite a bit. We are still going to be going Ardent Songbow to basically cover all of our ability haste, because we are not going to be really focused on ability haste at all in this build. We are going to be very much focused on primary LMB attack damage, right? So we're going to go Long Claw combined with Power Gauntlets. And this is basically going to give us, and I know a lot of people like Rage Steel. I'm not willing to sacrifice his attack speed. It feels too bad on Ghost. And I think this is bugged on a lot of characters where the attack speed thing is bugged, but I can certainly feel this difference in the initial burst. And I do not like it altering my 10-shot attack pattern. Where if you take just like the Power Gauntlet, which is basically the same thing, it's just less attack damage without the attack speed Bane, we can still keep our normal laser go burr, right? I just really don't like the way this changes the auto timing, and you actually have to stand and spray for longer to get the same amount of bullets through, especially if you understand the way Ghost auto works. The first bullet is always the most damage, 50% more. It scales down to 0% more at the 11th bullet. So your first 10 bullets are always more damage, significantly more damage. See the first one, 72. The last 20 bullets are 36, right? And so you are very much incentivized to shoot like this when you're on Ghost. You can't see it in the bottom left right now because it's kind of bugged, but it's these first 10 in the chamber, this bright green. You can see it in the laser, right? Laser's bright, and see how it gets all dinky after the first 10 bullets? You basically always want to be shooting on Ghost in this sort of burst fire method, right? You want to shoot the first 10, no more than the first 10, then you reset. Just let go for a quick second. This is going to give you by far the most DPS when you are just spraying at range. Really, the main time you're going to want to hold your fire down is if you connect a grenade or something. And in that case, while they're dazed, you want to just basically dump clip. But otherwise, you're always trying to burst fire first 10 shots. So along with this, I like keeping high tops as well. There are obviously other boot options you could look at, but for the same reasons we've talked about before, high tops feel pretty solid with this range setup. All right, finally, I want to end with like a really cool build that a couple guys in my Twitch chat were telling me to check out that I actually think is really cool for the right situations and actually has a lot of viability. And I basically have two versions of this. The first one is max damage with Omnivamp, and the second one is just all max damage. And I want to shout out Ashikata, Stuart. There were surely a couple other ghosts hanging out in my chat that were throwing me cool ideas. A lot of them really favoring basically sacrificing attack range and even attack speed for more primary damage. So what this build is going to look like, for the Omnivamp damage max, we are going to go Black Rose. And I actually have ran across quite a few ghosts that do enjoy Black Rose. And if you are running Black Rose, you're playing much more around like your nade angles, right? Because you're giving up that range, you're wanting to just like one combo people in like any kind of nade stun. So if you are looking again more to lean into like that kind of skirmisher ghost, I think this build is going to be really fun for that. And then along with Black Rose, we are going to go Rampager. And then for our grips, we are going to go Gorger, Rage Steel. So basically we're sacrificing 20% attack range for 15% more damage. And then we're sacrificing 20% attack speed for more attack damage. And then for our kicks, we are going Bloodlust. And we can see here, I have significantly shorter range. It's like Snub-Nosed Ghost, right? I'm shooting slower and I have shorter range, but I'm doing quite a bit more damage, and I'm now omni-vamping off of all that damage, right? So I have additional stacking damage on my Rampager as I'm hitting. I have additional stacking omni-vamp as I'm getting hit from my Rampager, plus the 10% for my Gorger Talons and the Overshield, plus any time I hit an ability, the extra I'm getting from my Combat Rush. And so we're doing more damage. We're also vamping off of all of that more damage for even more health back. And so this is just like a power blast, short range ghost skirmish build. You're very much going to be playing off your nade, playing off that wall stun, just getting out like huge bursts of damage short range. Gonna like be using your shift a bit more forward probably to close the gap. And in order to find those nade angles, right, you're gonna have to get a little craftier with how you play this in the battle royale. You're going to want to very much be playing around terrain, back through choke points. If you have something like a Tetra or like a Celeste on your team, like playing off of the terrain they can create, this is going to be very much like a terrain-oriented ghost, just because you're sacrificing the range and attack speed. You're going to need some kind of advantage in order to get this extra damage through. I do think this would be a really good build also if you have like a team you're playing around, like a crowd control heavy team, like that Zeph Kingpin we were talking about earlier. Like if Kingpin goes for a slam and like they are for sure 1000% dead with this build, right? I would just argue that in most other ghost builds, they're dead in that situation too. So I don't think you necessarily need this. But it would synergize very well, you know, if you had a crowd control heavy team. And I do think this build kind of goes turbo in warm up. It goes turbo in arena, where you have less of that BR setting where you would need more of the range and stuff, and you can just focus more on straight skirmishing, using your huge damage to heal and finding those good nade angles. Okay, so this very last build is basically the same exact idea, except we're dropping even our Omnivamp for even more damage. So if we don't even care about healing ourselves except from our passive, and we just want as much damage as we can possibly deal, we're going to take even more Kiss Curse. So we're going to go more overall damage from Sword of the Seven Suns, sacrifice some move speed and dash haste, and then we are just going to throw Power Gauntlet right on top of Rage Steel Gauntlet. So we have literally at this point every single item adding damage. 3 of them to primary attack, 1 of them overall damage, including all of our abilities, right? But keep in mind, like for our grenade, all of our damage is coming from our primary attack on Ghost, right? Our grenade is barely doing anything. All of our damage is coming from the dazed effect, hitting him with our primary attack, and the dazed effect increasing our primary attack damage, right? So all this primary attack we're building is going to increase the damage we're dealing with our nade. It's because the damage is coming from our primary fire, not from our nade ability, right? And the only other damage we have in this setup is our laser and our ult. So a huge portion of our damage is fully boosted from all these items. So we have 15% extra primary damage here. We have 9% extra primary here, so 24 plus an extra 10. And again, these will scale up as you get star levels, right? These are basically all 1 stars. And 2 stars for the most part. But another 10 would put us at 34% primary attack damage. And then with a 2-star Sword of Suns, that would put us at almost 50% extra damage overall on our LMBs. So with this build, our LMB is going to go Turbo Burr. And the main issue is we are giving up 20% attack range. We're giving up 15% dash haste, 15% move speed, as well as 20% attack speed in order to get this crazy damage. So we're going to be moving slower. We are going to be having less range, and we're also going to be shooting a little slower. And the price of that is we're going to absolutely delete stuff with our snub nose MK7 Glyph Rifle. All right, so those were the main builds I really want to shout out. I do want to call out some perks here. So I mentioned it halfway through, but I think the most important perk on Ghost is Dash Engine. And I think if you are having mana issues, even once you get Dash Engine, and or if you don't have Dash Engine yet, you want to get Amplified Mana as well. And I honestly like running these two together. I think he has enough mana issues to where these two together basically solve it, and you don't really have to think about it nearly as much. There are certainly situations where you can still go but hopefully you have that Vive Brew to pop real quick in that situation. And then in my opinion, the third best one for Ghost that I don't have yet, but is just very strong overall, is going to be Armor Shredder. Oh, the main other one for Ghost is Farsight. Sorry. So this is like the third main one. If there were three that you kind of want for sure, it's Dash Engine, Armor Shredder, Farsight. And I think from there's a lot of other really good options. There is the crazy generative elixirs bug that's good, but is probably going to get fixed at some point or just like removed. I think Grace is actually another really strong one on Ghost. And then another really good one on a bunch of different hunters is Regenerative Armor. Just because, especially like later game, how hard it is to scale. And like Aidan runs Armor Shredder, Regenerative Armor because it's just such a strong kind of setup in duality. It's giving you armor shred and it's giving you that ability to regen armor back at a combat. So that's another really good option. I would honestly probably put that one slightly above Grace in the sort of priority of things here. There's going to be a lot of good exotic perks that are worth fighting over as Ghost. I think another really strong one in general for a lot of different hunters is this thermal suit, immune to water and lava hazards, especially if you kind of get a glimpse at the map and where it's heading. If it's coming into anywhere around Mage Bog, anywhere around Chaos Steps, thermal suit can go really hard actually. Those are like the main ones. A couple other ones that you could build, like Omnivamp is going to be good, of course. If you're doing the health stacking thing, Fortitude could go good. Glider Booster's not bad at all for the extra glide speed. This one can come in handy quite a bit to eat Vive Brew faster. I've just found like a lot of times there are more important ones than this that I end up replacing it with, but this one is also really good, I think. You want at least one person on your team to try to grab Oracle Immunity. If you can, that's going to help quite a bit with just the macro side of things. I think Nocturnal is like a really underrated OP one because of the advantage it gives you at night versus the vision range on other hunters. And actually someone in my chat shouted out Nocturnal, and I was taking a closer look at it, and I do agree it's actually like a very strong one for being green. And then the other ones we were looking at are kind of optional, right? Regenerative Armor is good, Grace is good, more mana is good. I think any of these other ones can kind of work for this last slot, but these three, Dash Engine, Armor Shredder, Farsight, and Farsight just gives you an insanely long vision cone compared to how it normally is, and it comes into extremely high value in the Battle Royale setting. The amount of intel you're trying to gain as Ghost for your team being sort of an anchor and or scout in a lot of situations, combined with the fact of how important that intel is to navigate fights correctly, especially as you're coming in endgame, the circle is getting a lot tighter, you don't know where all the other teams are at. I think Farsight extremely strong on a character like Ghost. So these three, Dash Engine, Armor Shredder, Farsight, with maybe mana, maybe Grace, you know, maybe Regenerative Armor, as well as there's quite a few other options that if you just like personally, you could definitely take out of this list, right? Boom. So those are some build options on Ghost. I hope that was helpful for you. Again, this is basically just a collection of everything I've tested playing Ghost most days since 1.0 came out, combined with conversations I've had with top players, some of the best Ghosts in the game right now, combined with just community things I've seen and people coming out, hanging out in my Twitch chat, telling me about their build ideas. This is basically kind of the best that I've seen of all that so far. So I hope that was useful for you. I hope that really gives you some options to play Ghost exactly the way you want to play Ghost, and hopefully even experiment with some of these different play styles if you're having fun on Ghost, to really kind of see what the Armory is providing to us. And I think, you know, the company being named Theorycraft, this is much more in line of being able to actually theorycraft builds than it was before 1.0, which is very much more of like a binary item system. You pick blade, you pick helm, you pick your evolve if it's good. It was a very simplistic, almost no thought at all. This is quite the opposite, much deeper. And so I think if they could figure out a way where people are happy unlocking the Armory, then the items and the builds you can make with the Armory themselves, obviously there's a lot of balancing that needs to happen. Some of the 3 stars going crazy, but I do really like the build diversity, and I think it gives you like many more ways to play the different hunters on the cast than you could before. So right now we looked at maybe 8 different ways you could play Ghost. You could expand that same idea out to basically every other hunter on the cast, trying to build them different ways, and that results in just a lot more ways to play the game, which is the stuff that I find super fun. So I hope you will find it fun and enjoyable as well. I hope you enjoyed the video and found it valuable. With that, I just want to thank you so much for watching, remind you to take care of yourself and keep vibing. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.